Welcome to the Explainer. So today, we're diving straight into a highly relatable and, let's be honest, universally frustrating mental habit. We're going to unpack the truly surprising psychology behind it. If you've ever felt like your brain is just this broken time machine that only travels back to your absolute most awkward moments, well, you're exactly in the right place.
We've all been there, right? It's 3 a.m., you're lying in bed just staring at the ceiling, and suddenly, bam, you're completely trapped by your own mind. Out of absolutely nowhere, your brain decides, hey, this is the perfect time to pull up a highly classified file from the archives.
You know the exact one. You start agonizing over a slightly awkward conversation from like 6 years ago. You're laying there dissecting every single word you said, every weird pause, every microscopic facial expression the other person made. You're wondering if they still think about how awkward you were. But, spoiler alert, they don't even remember it happened. Now you might think this is just you being anxious, but there's actually something much deeper happening here.
That brings us to Section 1, the real motive. And the truth is, it's really not about them.
Right, so most people think conversation replaying is all about analyzing the other person. We think we're trying to figure out what they meant or if they secretly hate us, but in reality, you aren't analyzing them at all. You are desperately trying to rewrite yourself. You're trying to mentally become the version of you who said the perfect thing, who had the absolute perfect timing, and made a flawless impression. And the reason this hurts so much is because that moment is locked in the past, and you literally can't change it.
Psychologists actually call this the perfection gap. It's that agonizing disconnect between who we actually are and who we think we should be. Think about it. The conversations you replay usually aren't the ones where you did something completely horrible. No, they're the ones where you were just slightly off. You were a little too eager, maybe you laughed at the wrong time, or stumbled over your words. These tiny moments become massive in your mind because they feel like proof that you aren't who you want to be yet. You're exhausting yourself trying to close a gap that, honestly, only exists in your own head.
Okay, moving on to Section 2. Here's how your brain is actually gaslighting you using your own memory mechanism.
This is where it gets incredibly fascinating and honestly a little sad. Human memory does not work like a video camera. It's much more like a story that gets edited every single time you tell it. When you recall an event, you automatically inject your current anxiety right into it, and then your brain saves that newly warped version. So every single time you hit replay, you pollute the memory with today's insecurities. You aren't remembering the actual conversation anymore, you're just recalling the last time you remembered it.
What this means is you are torturing yourself over a totally fictional event. It literally didn't happen the way you remember it. How you perceive that chat right now is exponentially worse than reality. You've blown the uncomfortable moments out of proportion, completely ignored the normal parts, and probably fabricated an entire subtext where the other person was harshly judging you. Basically, your brain is just gaslighting you with this fake, hypercritical version of your own past.
Let's look at Section 3, the growth illusion. We really need to talk about reflection versus rumination.
Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking. But I do this to learn. I'm trying to improve myself for next time. Well, let's clear up that massive misconception right now. There is a huge difference here. Reflection is productive. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You pull out a lesson, and you move on. Rumination, that's an endless loop. You extract a lesson, forget the lesson, replay the chat, get mad at yourself, replay it again, and then wonder why you're awake at 3 a.m. Loops don't take you anywhere. They just dig a deeper hole.
So, as the research puts it, the people who replay conversations the most aren't the ones who care about growth, they're the ones who care about control. It's a desperate, entirely impossible attempt to control how other people perceive you. You're trying to control the narrative of an unchangeable past. Your brain hasn't quite accepted that this is literally impossible, so it just keeps spinning its wheels, totally convinced that if it just runs the tape one more time, it's going to find the magic key to rewrite history.
Which brings us to Section 4, the cost of the loop. This is exactly where you end up building a case against yourself.
I say this in the absolute gentlest way possible, but there is some real psychological self-harm involved in doing this. When you repeatedly rehearse this fake, super smooth version of yourself, you're paying a huge mental tax. Think about what you're actually practicing. Your brain is acting like a relentless prosecutor in a courtroom that never, ever closes. It's just collecting all this false evidence against you, proving you aren't smooth enough, that you're defective, that you don't deserve connection, and that unless you're absolutely flawless, you're failing. Every single loop subconsciously reinforces the totally false idea that the real you isn't good enough.
And that brings us to the number one, because the real tragedy here
It's not that you said something a little weird half a decade ago. The real tragedy is that you are allowing one single, isolated data point to completely define your identity for years. Researchers actually trace this exact pattern, and they find that people who lack self-compassion get trapped in these mental loops, and those loops just feed directly into severe ongoing anxiety.
Let's wrap things up with our final section, escaping the mental loop and finding some compassionate release.
So, how do we actually close down this late-night mental courtroom? How do we stop the loop? Well, the solution definitely isn't figuring out the ultimate comeback for a conversation that ended years ago. The solution is to stop giving one past conversation so much devastating power over how you view yourself today. Deep down, your brain knows that awkward version of you isn't the whole story. You've got to take all that exhausting mental energy you're spending on historical replays and forcefully redirect it into the present. Pour that energy into the people who are actually sitting right in front of you today.
You really have to remind yourself of this truth. Conversations are just moments. They are not prophecies about who you'll always be. A bad joke or an awkward pause is not evidence of some fundamental flaw in your character. Just remember that you were showing up as a human being, doing the absolute best you could with the awareness you had in that exact second. You didn't have the luxury of hindsight or a director yelling "take two." And you know what? That imperfect, stumbling effort, it's enough. It has always been enough.
As we bring this explainer to a close, I want to leave you with one final question. Is it finally time to stop pressing rewind? Next time you find yourself staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., just recognize the loop for what it really is. Give yourself the grace to let those beautifully, painfully human moments stay exactly where they belong, firmly in the past. So, are you ready to stop rewinding and start living right now?